All right. Okay, here we go. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Live with Leslie. And I'm Leslie Vitel. I work with functional medicine and nutrition professionals to help them to grow super successful businesses with multiple streams of income. So today's topic is honestly an extra juicy one. I'm super excited about this one in particular. And it's really going to be helpful, especially if you've been wondering how you can go about boosting revenue through your lab services. So, if that is you, you are definitely in the right place because I've got a wonderful guest joining me today, and that is Ryan Obermeier. And Ryan is the Chief Commercial Officer at Evexia Diagnostics. It's a company that I really love. And today we're going to chat about how to really lean in and make the most out of your diagnostic lab offerings. So get yourself comfy, grab yourself a coffee or a tea. We're going to dive into the behind the scenes look at how labs can become a really critical part of your business. All right, Ryan, welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here with me today.
Hey, Leslie, it's an absolute honor. I'm very excited to have this conversation about laboratory testing in the integrative functional medicine space. And I just might have a few business ideas to wrap around that concept as well.
I'm sure you do. Well, with that being said, let's jump in, shall we? Tell me a little bit about yourself. It's always really interesting to hear the backstory from my guests and the amazing career that you have led in the integrative functional medicine space.
Sure. Well, I am just a little less than a month away from starting my 27th year in the integrative functional medicine space. I started my career in dietary supplement sales. And for that particular organization, I was in sales, sales management, biz dev, international biz dev. And then for the last 6, 7, 8 years, I was at that organization. I also moonlighted with a second role as the director of corporate sales training. And because I was at the very beginning of that organization, I played a lot of roles, and I also was in various areas of the country performing those roles as well. So, in fact, I developed 13 territories domestically for that company and then launched the brand into its first two international markets of Mexico and Canada. So, one of the big things that I took away from that role was really adopting the best practices of each region. So, even though we're in the integrative functional medicine space, it is still a highly fragmented marketplace. What I mean by that is a medical practice in Southern Florida really doesn't resemble anything that you might see where I'm originally from in central Wisconsin. So, what I've been able to do is take the best practices from coast to coast, north of the border, south of the border, and share those best practices. And hopefully, I get to share a couple of those today. After that, I became the vice president of mergers and acquisitions at Forum Health. If you are not familiar with Forum Health, Forum Health is building a clinic of integrative functional medicine practices across the country, and their growth strategy is through mergers and acquisition. So acquisition and growth. And I was the VP of M&A. I bought 40 medical practices ish over the course of a very short period of time. And I was really able to find, or I guess my biggest takeaway from my time at Forum Health was I really was able to identify what is really needed and wanted by healthcare professionals. Something that I probably really didn't grasp during the first 19 years of my career while selling dietary supplements. And currently today, I am the Chief Commercial Officer at Evexia Diagnostics. And we're here as an organization to make your lives better as providers and your team's lives better as well by making your day-to-day workflow process procedure a lot more efficient.
Love that. So, out of curiosity, what would you say? I mean, you've got so much experience. How did your role at Forum Health as the VP, and specifically, I think you were the VP of mergers and acquisitions. So, how did that impact what you're doing now over at Evexia Diagnostics?
So I would say that my biggest takeaway, or one of my bigger takeaways, let me say it that way, at Forum Health, which with way it's impacted my role at Evexia Diagnostics, is really creating what I would say are standards. Now, I know that for many of you who are listening or watching, that is nails on the chalkboard because many of you might have jumped the fence from conventional care more into integrative functional medicine, or you've just pursued integrative functional medicine independent of conventional care. And the last thing that you want to hear is standards, right? Everyone's kind of running away from the standard of care because they want to do something a little bit different with the type of healthcare that they're delivering to patients. But bear with me. So this is what I believe with creating standards is when I worked at Forum Health, we would create a standard for various patient types. So we knew when that patient type walked in with this disease state that these are the labs they were going to run. This is the nutraceutical intervention. This is IV therapy, any other type of modality that might be incorporated in that patient type. And the reason why standards are important is because it reduces decision fatigue as a provider. So when you're at the beginning of your career, making all these decisions and treating everybody very personally, that's great. But over time, when you treat every patient and create a completely unique treatment program for every patient, over time, it leads to decision fatigue. And what does that decision fatigue do? It leads to burnout. So again, I was buying medical practices. I bought nearly 40 of them very rapidly. And I was talking to providers in their 40s. And they would say, Ryan, just buy this practice for me. I can't do it anymore. I'm so exhausted by running the business and then also handling patient care. So what I would say is the industry that we function in has not served itself. Over the course of 26 years that I've been in the space, it's had 26 different names, right? When I started, it was holistic natural medicine, but what's the nomenclature today? It's precision personalized medicine. So we as providers, which I'm not one of those, but you as providers, you think, well, it's personalized and it's precision. Everyone must have a very, very unique treatment plan that's built out for themselves. Here's my suggestion. Use the 80-20 rule. 80% of your treatment plan can really look identical to any other treatment plan. Use the last 20% of the treatment plan to be very unique for that patient. So as Americans, or whoever's North Americans, let's say, who are viewing this, we know very basics. We need to eat more healthfully. We need to move more, reduce our stress, sleep better, and then the last piece is create community, right? If we use that as the 80% and work on that, then we can use that last 20% for specific patients. So as an example, I certainly, if I was a provider, could not be talking to someone working shift work in the same fashion that if I was talking to a white collar worker who works 9 to 5. So again, create standards, make the decision on this patient type walks in, this is the 80%, and then me as the provider, I'm going to use that last 20% to get really creative to meet that patient where that's at. What that will do is reduce your decision fatigue, which ultimately will reduce burnout.
Okay. Wow. And burnout. Oh my gosh. Such a huge thing that we hear from our providers on a daily basis. So, well, let's jump into our content for today. So, and I know you've got some slides to share to help provide a visual to accompany this part of our conversation. So, what I want to segue into are the suggestions that you have to help maximize the diagnostic laboratory service line for our practitioners for their respective audience or audiences.
Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with Evexia Diagnostics, we are a tech-enabled web-based platform that allows healthcare professionals to access all their testing in one place. We do deliver on 3 value propositions. The first one is we grant you access to over 40 lab partners in what I would say are the integrative functional testing space, right? The boutique testing companies that have a very small niche in what they do and what they do extremely well. So as a healthcare professional, if you want to pursue more of the specialty boutique testing on our platform, you could absolutely do that. However, if you're a healthcare professional and you also want to order more of the conventional blood work, guess what? You can do that as well. It might be grabbing one of our pre-selected or pre-made off-the-shelf plug-and-play panels, maybe like a thyroid panel, as a healthcare professional on our platform, you could absolutely do that as well. Now, something that's very unique to Evexia Diagnostics is if you're a healthcare professional and you're like, no, I kind of want to develop my own panels, or I might want to grab one of those panels that Ryan just mentioned earlier and tweak one or two things. As a healthcare professional, you can create your own custom panels. So my point is this, is with the Evexia Diagnostics platform, you can take our platform as a healthcare professional in any direction that you could possibly conceive. The second value proposition that we deliver on is just improving process, procedure, workflows, and efficiencies. It's being able to order not only the conventional blood work, but also those specialty tests all from one platform. And hopefully it's from the convenience of one of the EMR platforms that Evexia Diagnostics has integrated with. Where we do our job is through relationship management. Now, you know, as an integrative healthcare professional, it's not uncommon to be ordering from 5 or more lab partners. Well, if you think about it from an efficiency standpoint, that's 5 or more orders a month. That's 5 or more boxes of supplies. That's 5 or more phone numbers that you have to remember to utilize when there's a problem that exists. And then also that's 5 or more relationships that you have to manage. With Evexia, it's one order, one box of supplies, one relationship that you have to manage. Now, our clients love our flexibility. I'm just giving you one in this presentation. If you are a solopreneur, you might like Evexia Direct. This is where patients can pay Evexia directly, and then Evexia can remunerate you, the healthcare professional, on the back end. Now, our last value proposition, and this is really what differentiates Evexia Diagnostics from other choices in the marketplace today, is where do we view ourselves in the ecosystem of your practice? We would love nothing more than to take over all things lab testing for your practice. What that allows you to do as the business owner, focus on what's important, building the business, and as the provider, what's more important, better patient care. Here are a couple examples on how we can function as an extension of your practice. Number one is price negotiation. On the conventional blood work side, you're going to notice our labs are anywhere from 50 to 80% less expensive than if you went directly with the lab company themselves. Likewise, when there is a problem, you have a human answering the phone 100% of the time without exceptions, rectifying any challenge that might exist within minutes. We'll also help you do lab interpretation, shop a new type of test maybe you've never done before, or compare like tests. We're also going to keep you up to speed with what's going on in the lab testing world. What you see on the screen is a breast cancer screen, and the collection is through teardrops. So a very unique collection, very, very cool test, and we'll certainly keep you up to speed. Another area where we can function as an extension of your practice is helping track down orders and patient results. This undoubtedly is probably a challenge that your team has to do every day. No longer do they need to take care of that. We will do that for your local practice. Likewise, if you're at the end of the month and you want to clean up some financial statements, we will reconcile bills for you. Now, if you don't have a phlebotomist on site, our team will find your patient the most convenient draw site. Now, if you do have a phlebotomist, we will send you supplies from our own warehouse. We'll also call at the end of the day for any specimen pickup if you have a lockbox. We have an entire series of additional value adds by being a member of Lesli Vitel's programming. One would be we offer 35 white label marketing assets that would be available to you. We are available after clinic hours, on weekends, and then yes, also on holidays. And so we really feel that we set ourselves up to be the one-stop shop for all things lab testing in the integrative functional medicine space. And we are available for a low monthly fee of free. Everything that I've mentioned to you is 100% free. And additionally, there's no marking up of tests to the patient. So in a nutshell, Evexia Diagnostics believes that we're a great consideration to put more money into the pockets of the business owners, make the lives of the providers much easier, their teams' lives easier by granting them access to over 10,000 tests in one place, where the team at Evexia Diagnostics can function as an extension of your own local practice. So in a nutshell, that is Evexia Diagnostics.
Great. All right. Well, gosh, it definitely is white glove service. Can we just agree on that? For sure. In terms of your customer service, which is so great. I do want to ask who are you serving at Evexia? Who would you say, is your main audience?
So we serve licensed providers and non-licensed providers,
Mhm.
and I would say that there's a little bit of ambiguity in the nomenclature. When we say non-licensed providers, what that means is any provider out there whose scope of practice that does not allow them to order lab testing. Evexia Diagnostics has an internal physician network that will sign off on your lab requisitions for you, and that requisition fee is only $5.
Okay, so that's pretty amazing. So, licensed providers, dietitians, naturopaths,
Health coaches, certified or
got
clinical
it. Okay, so
nutritionists.
all the above.
Yeah, the one thing I would say on top of that, don't only feel that that internal physician network is only for those who have a scope of practice that doesn't grant them access to labs. I would say for licensed providers who are working in multiple states, maybe states that you're not licensed in, many of our clients will use that internal physician network to sign off on the requisitions. What that allows them to do is, or what that grants them, let's say that, or extends to them, is an additional layer of legal protection because we're signing off on that requisition.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. And that does answer a common question, right? How do I manage,
Yes.
with someone in that capacity?
As telemedicine is becoming more and more the standard, this is going to be more and more inquired about, right?
Mhm.
It's very common for an MD to use our internal physician network. Maybe they're in Texas, they're working with a patient in Kentucky, and they just want to add that additional legal layer of legal protection. I think it's a great idea. For $5 to protect your license, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. So, can you speak a little bit more to creating bundles? Because, I mean, at least from my perspective, that just seems like such a great option, right? To have those bundles ready to go. And I love what you said earlier about the 80/20 rule, right? So,
Mm.
if you can elaborate on that, I think that might be really helpful for folks.
So I would say bundling or programming or whatever we want to call it. Basically, you're creating an entire package for patients to buy the entire package instead of a la carting, right? I
Mhm.
think what's happening is, and we see this just in the real world as well, that if you bought a flight anytime recently, you just get nickel and dimed on absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is healthcare professionals don't want to be grouped into that. So what they will do is they will bundle or package their services. Let's say I'm an expert in Hashimoto's disease. A patient then would purchase the entire package. That would include the labs, the nutraceutical intervention, the visits, whatever else might exist in that package. Now, with regards to labs, where I believe bundles become important is for those providers who get a little bit of heartburn in upcharging or making profit on labs. Now, there, I believe, 16 states in the union where if you use that nomenclature, it is illegal. There are certainly ways around it. You can call it an admin fee, you can call it an interpretation fee. But a lot of times when I talk to healthcare professionals, they will say, I just don't want to feel like I'm nickel and diming my patient for everything. Here's the truth. If you understand time and motion, meaning the amount of it costs you, the business owner, to actually offer labs in your practice, you would absolutely have zero problems upcharging your labs. But because many of you probably haven't gone through that process of, right, how much time does it take to order labs, go to the website, place an order, receive the box, unpackage it, get it on the shelf, do the lab interpretation, you probably have a little bit of heartburn, if you will, in marking up labs. So bundling is something that I've seen where you can actually mark up the lab, reduce the amount of heartburn you have because you don't feel like you're nickel and diming your patient, but then still you're getting remunerated as the business owner appropriately. And again, I bought nearly 40 medical practices in 40 years, which is extremely fast. And I did do that research of time and motion. And trust me, you want to be marking up labs. And again, if it helps you feel a little bit better, bundles or packages or programs, whatever you want to call it, is certainly something I would consider.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. All that ancillary time being spent, man, and Avexia clearly helps reduce that, but even so, it makes sense. And bundles, oh my gosh, definitely the way to go. Absolutely love that idea. So, for our practitioners that are here with us today, what would you say, Ryan? What do you recommend as a next step?
So I have three ideas,
Okay.
two or three ideas. Number one is if you are a business owner, I think it's imperative that if you aren't doing so, that you pick 1 or 2 days, business days. So if you work Monday through Friday, it has to be Monday through Friday to work on the business as opposed to working in the business. For most people, that means getting your butt off site and get into a place where you can get into flow state. So if you aren't familiar with flow state, that means you're in a situation where the ideas just start coming to you and you can barely write them down fast enough. For me, I found it's two areas. Number one, it's a very busy Starbucks. All that white noise helps me get into flow state. And a second area, which is on the opposite end of the continuum, is if I go for a hike. I have noticed, though, I have to hike alone. If I'm hiking with anyone, I don't get into flow state. So I guess one would be know thyself. Where do I need to get my butt to get into flow state? But then two, make sure you're scheduling or calendaring 1 or 2 days a month during a business day to get into the flow state so you can work on the business as opposed to in the business. Number two is if you are looking for an exit anywhere from 3 to 7 years, or if you're at the very beginning of your practice, figure out a way to grow yourself out of the practice. Again, leaning on my mergers and acquisition experience, your practice is valued much more the least amount of time or the least amount of revenue that you are responsible for generating. So as an example, if I'm $1 million business, but it costs, and if I'm generating all of the $1 million, my practice really isn't worth anything. However, if I am the medical director and I've hired 3 people under me to generate $1 million, my practice is worth a lot of money depending on how profitable it is. So that'd be my second idea, is just to start to get you to start to think about being a business owner, right? How do I ultimately get the most out of this business? And that's going to be selling it. And you got to get yourself out of revenue generation. The last bit of advice is going back to that first point. So if I'm going to get into flow state, and I typically will do this exercise at the very beginning of the year. I've been working with teams since 2006. In January of every year since 2006, I do the same thing. I ask my team 3 questions. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And the third question is, what do I do so dang well that I have to protect it, that I need to continue doing? And you think of it at 3 levels: personal level, corporate level, and team level. So you might, if you're a solopreneur, you're probably just thinking from a corporate level and a personal level, right? So again, what do I need to start doing? Meaning it's been on my to-do list and I haven't gotten to it. Number two is, what do I need to stop doing? Many business leaders or business gurus will say this is as important, if not more important, than this to start doing. And then the last thing is, what do I need to continue doing? What of my corporate culture do I need to protect to ensure that the business continues in its trajectory that it is? So those are my 3
Okay.
recommendations on what you could certainly get started today.
I love that. Those are good. I wrote them down. I love it. All right. So, for those in our audience who want to learn more about specifically Evexia Diagnostics, what would you recommend for those folks?
I would go to evexiadiagnostics.com. You're going to
Okay.
fill out a registration. Someone's going to reach out to you via email and also a phone call. Within the email will be a link. That link will allow you to schedule with them on a one-on-one, or we have a second option where you can schedule in a group session depending on what you want. Most people will start with the group session and they will have very specific questions for their practice. At that time, go ahead and schedule on their calendar and they can answer those questions specifically for your practice.
Doc, is it evexiadiagnostics.com?
It is. It's
Okay.
evexiadiagnostics.com. In the upper right, it'll say sign up here or something like that. Yeah, it's in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay.
So it's basically demographic data fields. It's nothing, not a big deal. It'll take you 30 seconds to fill out and you should be good to go.
Okay. All right. Well, as we start to wrap things up today, Ryan, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any final words of wisdom?
No, I think again, I would go back to what I said at the top of the call. I think the idea of number one, getting off site, working on the business as opposed to in the business, but then some of the ideas that I said, creating a standard, doing the 80-20 rule, focus, 80% of the treatment plans identical to everyone else with maybe some minor tweaks. Use that 20% to get really, really creative. And then the
Mhm.
last bit of advice is understand it does cost you, the business owner, money to offer labs in your practice. And you really need to consider, how do I remunerate myself for all the time, energy, and effort that it takes to offer labs in the practice?
Okay. All right. All right, everybody. So moving forward, I would highly recommend you check things out over to vexiadiagnostics.com. Check out their website, everything they have to offer. It really is a phenomenal company. And I really think, and I hear this too from lots of my clients, white glove service saves tons of time, helps organize, just so many benefits. So again, check them out, open an account. Remember that price point, free. We like that, don't we, Ryan? Um,
Absolutely.
so check them out, evexiadiagnostics.com. And that is a wrap for today. So a huge thank you to Ryan for hanging out with us today and sharing so many great pearls of wisdom with us. And for our audience, if you got value from this conversation, go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us grow the channel. And say hello over on Instagram as well. I'm at Lesli Bytel. I'd love to hear what you're working on in your practice. So thanks again for tuning in. Thank you to Ryan, and I'll catch you next time. All right, everybody, take care. Bye for now.